Greetings, Starfighters. Shameless Cashgrab continues from a new-ish office chair. if you remember the last episode, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, next movie. The one and only genuine original family band. I'd heard the title of this movie before. It was referenced on the Escape from Walt Disney podcast as a potential from the Okay. Yeah. This one, I think this one actually was from the What Would Walt Have Done era. If you remember back in episode one, depending how of this season, depending on how long ago you saw that, I mistakenly thought that Darby O'Gill and the Little People was part of that era. But no, I believe that this one definitely is. I don't see a year for this one on here, but I can see by looking at the back of the case here that it's going to be the second longest of the four films on here, with the one at the end being the longest, in case you were curious about that. Um, Honestly, I don't know anything about it apart from the title and that it came out during the What Would Walt Have Done era. So, I'm guessing it's about a family band. Yeah, that's all I got. I'd make a Partridge Family reference, but to be honest, I don't actually remember the show that well. I watched it like when it was in reruns on Nick at Night, but I don't remember much about it. Sorry. The one and only genuine original family band, folks. Oh, if you're wondering about this shirt, that's Sir Francis Crozier. I got this from Diamanda Hagen's Redbubble. It says down here. Don't know if you can see that. Straight out of Bainbridge. Okay. It's a polar exploration joke. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm leaving all the fans on. It is 95 fucking degrees in here. Okay, so I have finally watched the one and only genuine original family band. Oh god. Oh no. I have the song stuck in my head now. Shit. Okay. You know what? This episode has taken so long to make. I am not even going to do a retake on that. Plot summary courtesy of Wikipedia. Oh, the movie's from 1968. Did I say that already? Did I mention it's 95 degrees in here? At least it's colder than outside. The Bauer family band petitions the Democratic National Committee to sing a rally song for President Grover Cleveland at the party's 1888 convention. On the urging of Joe Carter, a journalist and suitor to eldest Bauer daughter Alice, the family decides instead to move to the Dakota Territory. There, Grandpa Bauer, a staunch Democrat, causes trouble with his pro-Cleveland sentiments. The Dakota residents are overwhelmingly Republican, and they hope to get the territory admitted as two states, North and South Dakota, rather than one, so as to send 4 Republican senators to Washington rather than 2. This is a Disney musical, folks. So it turns out the cast for this movie is a little stacked. Not only do we have a very young Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn in here, but also Leslie Ann Warren. Yeah, Miss Scarlet from the Clue movie. Anyway, the movie opens and gets right into the music with a song that is also the title of the movie, which, yeah, you kind of just heard me. The number largely goes off without a hitch, except the very, very last note with the tuba. This annoys the grandfather character played by Walter Brennan from the last movie, though not the same grandfather, obviously. The family eventually goes off to do other tasks, while the grandfather basically guilt trips the younger children into more practice, so the family band can get a trip to St. Louis and possibly play in front of the president. We learn that the grandfather also does not approve of his oldest granddaughter, Alice, mentioned in the summary, exchanging letters with a boy who he had approved of until finding out he was a Republican. This is in 1888, though, so I'm not on the grandfather's side here. This leads into another song, Alice's I Want song. On the off chance you don't know what I Want song means, it's a musical term. Look it up. After this, we fade cut to the family getting dressed up. Grandpa Bauer is being passive-aggressive about this Joe Carter guy. That's the guy that Alice is exchanging letters with, also mentioned in the summary, I believe. But to their credit, Alice's parents clearly have her back. There's a slight misunderstanding when a member of the DNC arrives to speak to the grandfather, but is initially mistaken for Carter, which leads to our third song of the movie, Grandpa Bauer's campaign song for Grover Cleveland. I'm sure this song was real big with the children of 1968. Anyway, the DNC guy is certainly not impressed, and despite him being a 19th century Democrat, I'm still inclined to agree with him. I played this song at 1.5 speed, and it still took too long. Oh, and I spoke too soon. He actually did like the song. He was just maintaining his composure or something. We learn here that the father of the family is himself a Republican, but had no trouble singing the pro-Democrat song with his family, as he considers music to be above all that. Nope, not going to go off on that. Smarter people than me have touched that subject. Let's move on. The DNC guy invites the family to St. Louis for the convention. After he leaves, we get another song. It's like the DVD set somehow knew about my thinking there weren't enough songs in the previous movie and is overcompensating. Anyway, at the end of the number, the Carter guy actually shows up, and Alice has a mild panic attack for some reason. It turns out she was embarrassed that his first time seeing her in person was her goofing off with her family, when all her letters to him had been more formal. Turns out he doesn't have a problem with that at all. Points for that movie. You've got guys in this century who can't handle the idea of women being funny, and here Disney is giving us a guy in the 19th century who likes it. This is about where the convincing the family to go to the Dakotas starts, which includes a tirade about Democrats, apparently unaware that his new girlfriend's grandfather is one, and I should not be shocked that the tirade includes a couple of anti-Semitic dog whistles, but wow, I was not ready to hear that in a Disney movie, even one from the 1960s. Sounds more like a modern-day Republican. We go to later that evening, and Carter is pitching moving to the Dakotas to a gathering of various locals, and the grandfather heckles him partway through. Of course, the indigenous people who were there first don't get mentioned at all, but that's not too unsurprising. And then another song, this time from Carter. The next day, the grandfather overhears his son and daughter-in-law talking about moving to the Dakotas, but the son argues against it, citing his father's age, which makes the grandfather feel guilty, and yada yada, he concedes to the family moving. Him convincing the younger grandchildren to go along with it all happens off-screen, and we get a reprise of the previous song that leads into a montage of the family moving. They arrive. Alice gets set up as a school teacher right away. There's arguments in the streets between Democrats and Republicans, which is totally something I expect from a Disney family musical. And then we get another musical number from the family. This one, the grandfather starts to derail an anti-Grover Cleveland speech. And who was this movie for? Oh, and the song is a reprise of the pro-Cleveland song from earlier in the movie. This ends up nearly causing an all-out brawl in the streets of whatever the name of the town they all went to is. I honestly don't remember if they actually named the town on screen. The tension is eased somewhat by the elder Bauer and Carter entering into a bet, with the loser having to give the winner a ride in a wheelbarrow depending on who wins the election. Yada yada, this almost costs Alice the teaching gig, yada yada, there's tension now between Carter and Alice. Another inoffensive but bland song. Grandpa Bauer ends up in a political argument with a bunch of grade schoolers, which turns into a song about a military drummer, yada yada. The grandfather gets in trouble for this, as is to be expected, both with Carter and the rest of his family, when his son asks him to not start arguments with his granddaughter's boyfriend. He gets all sad and starts to move out, and the movie clearly wants me to feel sad about it, but this guy fought for the Confederacy, so fuck him. And good grief, the scene of him leaving drags on for way too long. Not in terms of actual screen time, it was only 3 or 4 minutes, but it felt a lot longer. Anyway, after about an hour and a half of the grandkids crying, there's a town meeting where people get mad at Alice for things her grandfather said. Carter tries to take the heat off her, but that backfires, yada yada. The grandfather gets talked into staying for the sake of the family band, which has been requested to perform at an election event for when the returns come in. And for those who may not know, 1888 is, yeah, I think, yeah, it's the first election where the winner of the popular vote and the winner of the Electoral College were not the same. Something that wouldn't happen again until my adult life started, and then it happened twice before I turned 40. We go to the election event. There's a song and dance number. The choreography here is easily the most impressive in the movie so far and is something of a high point. It also goes by too quick for me to get a decent screenshot of. We get yet another reprise of the Grover Cleveland campaign song as results start trickling in. Then we get another song, this one about Benjamin Harrison, and I'm so glad there's only about 15 minutes left. And thankfully, they don't make us sit through all of the returns. There's a fade cut that takes us to the final popular vote tally, and Carter getting ready to give Grandpa Bauer that wheelbarrow ride they'd had a bet for earlier in the movie. But then someone comes in with the news about the Electoral College declaring Harrison the winner. We need to get rid of the Electoral College, by the way. This leads to an all-out brawl, which the family band manages to put a stop to by playing My Country 'Tis of Thee. And there's a trite unity speech that might have gone over well in 1968, but just feels spineless today. Then it gets real uncomfortable as Carter kisses Alice. She slaps him, and he just grabs her and brings her in the wheelbarrow with him, while her grandfather pushes, and everybody's cheering, and apparently this is supposed to be funny. He, Carter, starts singing, and she starts going back and forth between smiling and trying to get loose of Carter's grip. He was ahead of the curve on that one. That's the kind of shit we expect from Republicans now. We close on a reprise of the first song of the movie, this time sung by the whole town. The end. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. 1. It's a little awkward in 2026 to be watching a movie where I'm supposed to dislike a guy who constantly take pot shots at the Republican Party. But like I said in the plot summary and several times throughout the recap, this movie is set in 1888. 2. The music in this movie was written by the Sherman Brothers. Not their best work, but at least it explains why I was able to tolerate it, at least. And it's not that any of the singing is bad, just to be clear, it's just that I don't care. 3. Oh, this movie was apparently based on a real family. I don't care enough to look them up, though. 4. One thing this movie does well, it probably didn't do on purpose, but that's showing how absolutely incoherent some individuals' politics can be. Grandpa Bauer is proud to have fought on the side of the South in the Civil War, yet oddly still holds considerable admiration for Abraham Lincoln. I'm sure it makes sense to him. It reminds me of some news footage I saw a clip of back during the 2008 election where this guy said that he believed the conspiracy theory about Barack Obama being born in Kenya, but he was going to vote for him anyway. People are weird. 5. I know I mentioned both Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn were in this movie, but they don't really do much. The latter only has one line. Final verdict. It could be the heat. It could be the longer than normal gap between movies. It could be the movie itself, or perhaps some combination of all three, but the magic word for today, kids, is apathy. For easily 90% of the movie, at least, probably more, I really struggled to give a single shit about anything that was happening. About any of the characters, about the songs, about the acting. I just don't care. Well, I did care about the denouement, but not in a good way. I just found that gross. Though at least it was short. The denouement, I mean. The movie itself was, I think it was actually more than an hour and a half. Not that you'd know that from my recap. Not much else for me to say, really. Come back next regulation episode for the season finale, the movie The Happiest Millionaire. I'm going to do a bonus episode this season to make up for the long gap between the second and third movies, hence my use of the word regulation there. Expect the bonus episode before the season wrap-up. It may come before The Happiest Millionaire too. I'm not sure about that yet. We'll see. Have fun, stay safe, and stay hydrated. Fuck me, it's hot.